Hello, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to our weekly meeting. This one's definitely going to be, like I was just saying, um, a more serious engagement and something that's going to be focused on the threats to crypto and the issues that we're seeing in crypto. Many of them are going to be scary in the short term, but they're almost all going to be good in the long term. So, you may agree with some of the stuff, you may not agree with some of the stuff. That's all up to you to see what you believe and see what you take away from it. Obviously, please make sure you do your own research. None of this is financial advice. You know the spiel. I'm not trying to tell you you should do one way or the other. I'm going to lay out whatever I have, whatever I'm seeing, and then you get to decide how you want to play it. Um, there's going to be a lot of this stuff that's going to make you feel like, holy shit, I want to run for the hills, and that's exactly the kind of emotional state that we're supposed to be put into in order to react in a way that is against our own best interests. um, just to start off, I'm not saying the fundamentals of crypto have changed. All of these things, that all the threats and all the kind of negative things that we're going to be looking at, those are actually the things that make crypto fundamentally sound the way it's always been. Now it's just coming to fruition. This is this whole global reset agenda has been in play for a long time, and now the old system is going to have to die in order for this new system to come out. And it's not going to be just crypto by itself, but crypto is a massive piece of that new system. So yeah, the stuff seems like it's scary, but it needs to happen in order for the new system to go live the way it's going to go. And riding through all of this stuff is going to be that, like we've discussed, it's becoming much harder for them to shake people out of crypto. So now they're bringing institutional grade, government grade FUD and actual like things that they're going to implement to try to scare people out of their positions in crypto. Um, so let's just get started. So number one threat to crypto that we already know, and that we're experiencing in a very deep way right now, is the manipulation in FUD. Right? We all know that they will, and you can clearly see that they're manipulating all the cryptos in a very fundamental way so that it looks like it's just scarier and scarier, that it's going to drop off of a cliff. This is not out of the ordinary. This is just a much deeper, kind of much more coordinated, much more institutional grade, like I call it, level of FUD, where the same thing happened in 2014, 2013, 2014, where we had that local peak and then everything dropped off. We had like a 70 something percent drop, and then everybody thought it was done. And at that point, we didn't have institutions, we didn't have all these sound fundamentals behind it. And then later on, it had a huge rise, but it was a long time after. And the other thing is, when you're looking at the data for these cycles, it seems like now, and especially the way this cycle is going, it seems like the cycles are lengthening with diminishing returns. Right? Again, we don't know one way or the other, but it definitely seems like that's what's happening. So this could take much longer than we've anticipated in the first place. The September and all that stuff is pretty much out of the question. Um, but again, there's no way to know one way or the other, basically. But that manipulation in FUD is so coordinated now that the goal is to be able to scare as many people out of their positions, because there literally isn't enough Bitcoin available for people to buy up. When there's 51 million millionaires and there's only 21 million Bitcoin, so they have to make sure they scare as many average people out of their positions as possible in order to have the liquidity and supply available for institutions to come online. But it's also that those institutions want to make sure that they get in at the right time, and a lot of them have their assets sitting in the traditional markets. They have them in stock market, bonds markets, derivative markets, and those markets have been blown up and inflated, especially in the last year and a half, in a massive way. But also over the last like 20 years, they've just been on a tear. Those markets are now starting to destabilize. So that's one of the biggest first external factors that we have to take into consideration. That the way these markets work is, people who are invested into stock market and invested into all those other markets, they're also invested into crypto. Since a long time ago, those investors have had investors in crypto. So when those markets tank, they actually sell their positions on crypto to cover their positions in the traditional markets. So that, like the same way during COVID, we saw that massive dip. When the traditional markets tank, the crypto market will take a huge tumble, sometimes as big of a tumble or maybe even a bigger tumble, so that they can cover their positions. And then the manipulation also goes through the roof. Like you probably noticed, the Dow tumbled 600 points, I think yesterday or the day before, and then we saw a correlated dip in crypto itself. those markets have to collapse in order for this new system to come online, in order for all this stuff to happen the way it's been planned. Those traditional markets have to collapse, and they're teetering right on the edge now, and they're starting to panic, and they're blaming it on like, oh, unvaccinated people might be causing it, and that's always part of the FUD narrative. But the idea is, as soon as those markets collapse, that's going to momentarily or temporarily take crypto down with it. That's just how the world works. In that kind of capitulation event, many people are going to panic and they're going to sell their crypto, right? But it's the same way that like people panicked and sold crypto in the COVID March 2020 event, and then it went down to 3,000, and then it went a year later to 60,000. So on the longer, that's why I keep saying, like, on the longer scale, these things are good, because one, it's going to make sure that the traditional financial system does collapse, because it has to collapse, like mathematically and fundamentally it has to, in order for economies to continue. Secondly, economies aren't running, so the value of stocks and all those things are inflated in a fake way. When they collapse, temporarily it does take crypto down with it, and the next thing that would have to happen is basically all that capital then needs somewhere to go, because collapses are one of the worst things that happen, but it's also the most opportune moment for investors to actually go buy up assets that are super cheap at like rock bottom prices, and the people who actually make the money in the collapse go back and buy up everything after the fact, and that's what brings the prices back up. So that same thing is going to happen to crypto. And again, do your own research. When I say it's just my assumption, it's just my opinion. But what I'm seeing is that the monetary flow that has to flow from those traditional markets into crypto. And when we're saying crypto, they're mainly just looking at Bitcoin and Ethereum, right? They're invested in a small way in the rest of them. There's 10,000 cryptos, but when I'm saying the monetary flow is going to come into crypto, I'm mainly looking at Bitcoin and Ethereum, because those are the two trusted vehicles that institutions are willing to go into, and the high net worth individuals are willing to go into readily. Mainly Bitcoin, but Ethereum is really becoming readily accepted across the markets. But the point is, the stock market and the traditional markets are looking like they're teetering. We've been waiting for them to collapse. They're gonna collapse sometime. And this is where I might sound like a conspiracy theorist, but this is again my worldview, that there is a financial collapse coming, which has been planned. This is all part of that Great Reset. If you don't know the Great Reset, Google the Great Reset from the World Economic Forum and the IMF, and all of them are planning to end the old system. And one of the ways that's going to happen, that they have to do it, is they have to collapse the stock markets and the traditional markets. Okay, so that happens, that takes crypto down with it, and then that capital will then be allowed to flow into crypto, and things will come back up, and at least Bitcoin and Ethereum, in my assumption, will come back up in a massive way. Okay, so again, good in the long term, bad in the short term. But even like but the good and bad is relative, because it's like, just because things are dropping doesn't mean that they're bad. That it means that crypto is becoming official, and it's actually being adopted in a major way, and the capital is allowed to flow. So that's just the stock markets and the traditional markets, right? In parallel, another thing that's going on is a financial collapse of the financial system, which means that currency collapses and banking system collapses. Because if you think about it, the whole world, all the businesses and all the houses and all the assets we've had that are almost everybody's on a loan, those assets were assets on bank balance sheets. So banks were basically saying, okay, this person's a reliable person to lend to, and then this borrower will always pay back the loan in a reliable way because they have a business or they have an income stream. Therefore, it's an asset to us because it's making money for the bank. Now that's not the case. Businesses have been shut down. Homes, people don't have jobs, so they can't pay for homes. So all those things are effectively becoming liabilities. What that does is basically it makes the banks insolvent in many ways, right? Because there's no income coming in. Those things have now become liabilities. So that is one of the reasons why the traditional financial system will see massive shocks, where banks will collapse. And one of the things that banks do when they collapse is, if you haven't looked into this, look into the bank bail-ins. There's bank bailouts where the government bails them out, but most banks in the world have changed their regulations so that they allow bank bail-ins, where when stuff gets destabilized, they just stop all transactions, and then they'll be able to take the funds from your account to actually bail themselves out. Okay, again, this is alarmist, this is like nihilistic, but this is just what I'm seeing, that there's a potential that as countries go insolvent, as banks go insolvent, the money that we have sitting in that traditional financial system will see a collapse. And if you're in Indonesia, you know the collapse that we had previously, and many countries have had this. As a matter of fact, every single fiat currency that's ever existed has always had this, that eventually the currency collapses and the value of the currency itself diminishes, and the banking system collapses. And that's also one of the ways that the means of control is going to be transferred up to central banks and CBDCs. So that's kind of the next threat that I want to look at, is like central bank digital currencies. In order to transfer, because right now the way money works is it's printed by central banks and then it's given to banks, and those banks put it in people's accounts, put it into they lend it out to people, and there's this middleman aspect to banks, and then those banks are the ones that transfer it internationally and transfer it for global commerce. So if those banks are going to go insolvent in many ways, other than like the biggest banks that get bailed out all the time, if those banks are going to go insolvent, that means, first of all, you have to change the global transfer system, which is kind of what we talked about in the ISO 20022 system. But also the way the money is given out to the system has to change, and that's why CBDCs are coming online, where central banks will print the money and put it directly into your CBDC account, into your wallet, and that's going to be connected to the central bank itself. So, and one of the reasons why now they've started to look at Tether and a bunch of stable coins is because they want CBDCs to be the thing that we use instead of stable coins. See, the point isn't to kill crypto off. They invented crypto. Crypto is a vehicle for them to be able to, secure their wealth while all of this is going on. The point is to bring crypto under regulation and bring it into control and make sure that everything's done according to their liking. And CBDCs are one of those methods of control where, these central bank digital currencies will be controlled by the central bank. It'll be connected to your ID. It'll be limited in the way that you're allowed to use it. And if you're not according to their social credit system or whatever system's coming, you will have limited capacity to be able to use your own funds. But the point is to connect crypto to that system, right? So just an overview of kind of what we looked at in the previous talk, or the ISO 20022 talk, was, the plan is to basically build rails in the back end that run on crypto rails. On the front end, there are going to be systems that actually allow interoperability between the financial system, cryptos, CBDC banks, and whatever semblance of the traditional financial system survives. But that interoperability layer is going to make sure that any crypto that interacts with it, that wants to flow through the banking system, is going to have to be regulated. And they're going to try to push everything through the CBDCs as much as possible. And that's why there's now news coming out that, US dollar tether is something that they're starting to get concerned about. And they're making sure USDC is one of the things that is being pushed more, and it's being accepted by MasterCard and kind of integrated into the system, because Circle is one of the global players that they want to put out there. Now that leads into, so CBDCs themselves are a threat, but at the same time, all of that is necessary in order for that kind of, utopic financial system that we're talking about, where cryptos and assets and CBDCs and everything will be able to flow all seamlessly with each other, right? This connection, this interoperability has to go live in order for the next financial system to come out, which is automated and smart contract based, and just money flows around like water rather than being kept in all of these different silos. If you haven't watched the previous talk, please do. I'm going to be doing another one in a couple weeks explaining all this. But now that brings me to the next threat, and one of the biggest grenade pins that they've left inside of crypto that is going to be pulled for sure, and that is US dollar tether. Okay, anybody who knows about crypto, anybody who's looked in this direction, we know that most of the monetary flow within crypto goes through tether. I think there's like now 65 billion or 70 billion or something of tether out there. And if you don't know this, please Google US dollar tether crypto problem or something like that, and read up on it yourself. But it's basically a money printing, money counterfeiting scheme, which is US dollar tether. It's run by scammers. They've left it within crypto and left basically the entire crypto market dependent on top of this. And the regulators are going to come after it. they're already starting to talk about it. They've already kind of put word out there that we're going to come after it because one, it competes with their USDC, but also then it competes with CBDCs, and it's pretty much fraudulent. It's supposed to be that a dollar of Tether is backed by a dollar of actual dollars, which are worthless in the first place. But it's actually not. Only 3 point something% is they're saying is backed by dollars, and the rest of it is just hokey pokey paper, basically. But what I mean by that is it's a massive threat that they've left in there, because you see I've been playing this game for 9 years, and every single time here's always the game plan. Get into crypto, pump it up, and then cause some FUD to cause it to drop, and then trick people into thinking this is the end, and then pump it up again, and then people jump on again, and then pull some massive pin. It's some like, it was the Mt. Gox hack, or like the ETFs and all that stuff coming out. But figure out something big, keep something nice and juicy to cause an actual collapse, to scare, as first of all, cause people to buy on the way up, and then drop it in a way so that it scares most people out of it. And that's literally what Tether is. That's what all of these, I'm not saying that the financial collapse was like planned for crypto, but it's being timed perfectly so that the financial collapse will be one of the pins. Most likely will be one of the pins. The traditional market, the stock market collapse and all that stuff is one huge pin, and then Tether is a massive pin. And so what do I mean by like pin? It's basically saying that the day they come after Tether, or Tether goes insolvent, or some when they actually decide to destroy Tether, that means most of the exchanges and places that are relying on Tether to be able to transact are going to go insolvent, or at least for some period of time. And that means Binance, so you've probably seen already that they're coming after Binance. They're shutting down Binance in many different places. So I'm personally leaving Binance, because you can see that the regulators are coming after it. It's reliant on Tether, and that's just not a good situation to if you're holding any funds on Tether, on Binance, definitely take a look at it, because it's not a reliable place for you to keep your funds. Exchanges aren't reliable at all anymore, but like, just they're going to come after Binance regulatorily, and when they pull the plug on Tether, that's going to take down places like Binance and other places. Will they come back? Potentially, probably, but when they're regulating them out of existence in the way that they are, that really lends itself to then you having to wonder, like, hey, I want to secure myself from that whole situation. So that's kind of the next piece that I want to look at, is like the next threat is regulations. Okay, because up until now we've been allowed to play in the wild west. We set up coins and set up a game where it prints tokens, and those tokens are convertible into money. So effectively you're printing money, and I'm talking about Axes and all these kind of things. But also, like, create tokens and DeFi, and just mint 50 million% interest rates out of thin air, and it's just been all free and open. And if things that are exactly financial products have been allowed to just flourish in the way that they have, but now one of the biggest things that's changed this time around is regulation. They're actually going to come after crypto. Part of it is part of the FUD narrative, where they're saying, oh, we're going to, like the EU had just announced that we're going to block private wallets, and like, we're going to close you off. So you should be terrified of it. So that is part of like scaring you, but it's partially because the plan is to actually regulate crypto. Because firstly, institutions and the major players don't want to play in an unregulated market, because there's too much volatility, and we're allowed to kind of, it's like the wild west. But also because in order for that new system to go online, it has to be certified, it has to be regulated, it has to be along the lines of all of the kind of set rules that they have in place. And they're not just going to let us create financial products forever. Like, look at how regulated traditional financial products are. Expect the same thing to happen to crypto within the next, at least the next 4 years, basically. And that's all on the horizon. So that regulation could come in the form of them blocking exchanges, them, like they're already doing, regulating Binance out of existence, regulating USDT out of existence, regulating where you can hold the crypto, regulating KYC on wallets, regulating how you're allowed to allow money to flow from your bank account into the system. And especially if, when that new ISO system goes live, then it fundamentally has to be regulated in the way that all of that flows around. So all of that is stuff that we're going to have to ride through. You know, you're either going to have to ride through, or you're going to have to be aware of that to understand, okay, this is what's going on. This is why things are being destabilized in the way that they are. And in the short term, it is going to, we're already starting to see it, but like, it is going to cause massive turbulence in crypto. Okay. So now we're going to start to get really into the weeds of things that are that are out there. Okay, because like if anybody participated in the Cyber Polygon exercise, so I actually was I actually followed along with that. They talked about how crypto is being considered one of the threats to cybersecurity because ransomware is being done through crypto. Again, another set of FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt to scare people into thinking that's all crypto is being used for. So here's some notes of what they mentioned and what they said about cryptocurrencies. So they said digital IDs will be needed to avert crime, which means everybody ID'd, nobody allowed to, hold crypto and other things without having digital ID. So if you think you can hold it outside of the system, good luck with that. And that's where, I'm super keen on bringing into corporate structures and making sure you're investing it into companies and you're able to, completely be legit and show it and have a digital ID, but through a company rather than through yourself. So if you don't know about that, get in touch with me. They said cryptos allow ransomware, therefore cryptos are a threat to the financial stability. Regulations are needed for crypto to avert all of these ransomware attacks. Therefore, again, control, bringing cryptos under control and KYCing all the different endpoints. And by that I mean, it's already like the on ramps and off ramps into crypto are already KYC, which is know your customer if you're a beginner. What that means is every time you take money from the traditional financial system and you put it into crypto, that on ramp, that's called an on ramp. And then when you take crypto money and put it into the banking system, that's called an off ramp. The on and off ramps are already regulated in a heavy way, and any places that aren't will be made illegal and pushed out of existence. When that new banking system goes live, then every single node point, which is the bank account, will automatically be tracked. So you will have your digital ID already attached to it. And so the other thing they mentioned is there's a two-tier system likely with CBDCs, stable coins, and tokenized forms of money like crypto assets. So there's going to be a two-tier system where it's like the CBDCs will act like stable coins, and you'll have to use CBDCs to function in the traditional financial system. And so, the way we're seeing that new system being built is the back end of the system, which will be controlled by bankers and the powers that be, will be run on assets. And if you've heard the other talk, yeah, looks like XRP is going to be one of the main assets that the backend systems run on. The front end of the system looks like it's going to be built on XDC and Algorand. Again, don't just go out and buy these because I'm saying these. You're taking a massive risk on yourself if you do any of this, and you could get wrecked and you could get fucked. But the back end of the system is going to be built in a way so the people will not be able to access it. It'll be based on an asset. It'll be based on tokenized assets that'll carry tokenized digital assets that will carry assets and value on rails in the back end, and on the front end, things like XDC and Algorand will be used to interact with cryptocurrencies and CBDCs. So there's going to be a two-tier system. There's a front end, which we're allowed to interact with, which is the currency side, and then there's the back end, which is the asset side. So the currency will be inflated forever the way it is now. So even accruing wealth in that system will be useless because it'll be inflating at such a rate, and it'll have regulations, and maybe it'll have negative interest rates. We don't know exactly how. But the back end of the system is going to be asset based. So this two-tier system is likely to have CBDCs and stable coins on the front, and then tokenized assets. Well, for us, the tokenized assets will be interacting from the front end, and for the wealthy and the bankers, the tokenized assets will be in the back end that only they'll be able to control. And this is, again, coming from Cyber Polygon, which is an exercise held by the World Economic Forum just recently. Google it, watch the 7 hours of video, and they talk about all of these things exactly. So the other thing they mentioned is right now there's no interoperability layer that ties all the financial systems together, and that in and of itself they're considering a threat to the financial system, but also a cyber threat. Cyber Polygon was there to actually discuss cyber threats, but they're saying that the fact that there's no standard that ties the entire system together, that is a threat in and of itself, and that's where the ISO 20022 system comes in, because it's a single. What that is a language that every single financial institution, financial player will speak so that the entire chain, effectively all the money in the world, will be tracked and will be communicated using the same language. And when I say language, it's like programming language, computers. When that happens, that means every single penny that moves anywhere through crypto or outside of or in the financial system will be able to be tracked in some capacity. Now, yeah, crypto will be able to, crypto, if this is tracking everything that's flowing within the banking system, and crypto is attached to the front of it, then yes, the crypto ecosystems will have some decentralized capacity to be able to not be tracked in this way. But anytime you come into a node point and you want to convert it into money and you want to use it in real life, spend it effectively, it will be tracked. And even it's looking like they're even going to only allow the cryptos to be attached to the front that are trackable in many ways. Open blockchains, none of these privacy chains, not like Monero and Pirate Chain. If you think you can go hide in those are going to get regulated out of the system. So they're going to become black market vehicles, and you'll only be able to use them as a felon effectively. And again, this is what I'm seeing. I don't know exactly how it's going to happen, but in order for this system to go live, they can't have any privacy. It has to be all trackable. So the other thing they kind of mentioned, which was very interesting, was they said cash is likely to exist for a long time as the transition to digital happens. Because the point isn't to like tell us, okay, you can't use this, we're going to force you to use this new system, and that's that, right? The point is to slowly convince us to hook up to the digital system ourselves, where it's so convenient that we just choose to use the digital over cash. But cash will exist in a massive capacity for some period of time until everything just goes fully digital. And that's also where many different sources have kind of mentioned to me, that I really rely on, that different countries will do it different ways. Europe, US, Australia, all the developed world, like we look at it, will become completely totalitarian. So they will want 100% control. They'll try to force digital as much as possible, and they'll just do exactly what they want to do the way they want to do it, and everybody there follows rules. So they will, jump on that boat as quickly as possible. Much of the developing world, not much of it, but like large parts of the developing world, like Africa and South America, which we're already starting to see, will actually be freer in their capacity. They will adopt these new systems, but they'll adopt it in stages so that there is some more freedom. It's likely that places like Indonesia, where they love cash, will have it for much longer, just because of the way the system here works. But that's kind of going to be kind of a blend where CBDCs come out, they're going to be the thing that's going to be almost necessary to be able to interact with crypto and that whole world. But cash will exist in some capacity, again, coming from Cyber Polygon themselves. So the other thing they mentioned is that CBDCs will likely be issued on the ledger of the central banks, which we knew, right? Like right now, all money is issued on the ledger of central banks. They just go into, most of the money in the world is tied to the US dollar, and the US dollar is produced by the central bank, just literally putting it onto a ledger saying, yeah, we printed this much money. It's like an IOU. The CBDCs will still be issued the same way. So it's just like a digital version of the dollar. Where it'll differ a little bit, seems like it'll differ a little bit, is that they're going to make sure that they're still going to leave the last mile problem to the banks. And what the last mile means is like, you bring in the money from a central bank, you have it, basically in the system itself, but that you're buying a coffee, or you're interacting with some online purchase. That transaction will still be processed by payment processors and banks. That's where they'll become, instead of them controlling the guts of the banking system, they'll become part of that last interaction of actually taking funds from your account, putting it into the seller's account, and managing all that. So central banks will control most of the actual system, and then the kind of last mile will be controlled by payment processors and smaller banks. And then apps and services will handle the KYC and integration of CBDCs. So the actual implementation, because you're thinking like, okay, well, all this stuff's going to come out, but who's going to force me to use it? Every place that you'll be allowed to shop, Visa, MasterCard, IBM, all the biggest players in the world are all coming on this system. So they're going to make it so that all of their retailers, all of the online shops, all of the places where right now money flows in most countries, especially developed countries, will be on the system, and it'll be implemented through, like, iOS will implement it, Android will implement it, Google will implement it, Amazon will implement it. So the actual vendors themselves will build these functionalities into the system, and you just won't be able to operate outside of it, unless you're like paying cash for some rice from a farmer here, that it won't be able, you won't be able to operate outside of that. So the other kind of interesting piece was that the multiple times the central bankers in the Cyber Polygon exercise referred to cryptocurrencies as monetary surrogates, which is a way of saying that it's effectively money printing, and that's something very serious to think about, because like they're calling it money printing, and DeFi especially is one of those places where like it's just kind of being printed out of thin air and it's being turned into real dollars. US dollar tether is just created out of thin air and then it's turned into real dollars, which is then turned into Bitcoin, which is real money, right? So them seeing it like that, they're gonna use these kind of narratives to come after and say this is money printing, this is ransomware technology, this is all those things that give them the authority and the justification to come after crypto. They're probably going to use. Visa has added USDC as the first step towards integrating crypto stablecoins into payment networks. So now MasterCard has already also done the same thing. Two biggest card players in the world have now integrated US Dollar Circle, which is a stablecoin, into their system. So that's where when there's all this FUD and all this narrative about like crypto's gonna die and this is the end and like fuck crypto and this is like all scammers and all this stuff, you have to remember, like, wait, so why would PayPal, Square, MasterCard, and Visa be integrating this into their systems and building stable coins into their systems if they thought crypto was going to die, if all of crypto was going to disappear? So to that effect, there's going to be a few different rails that we're talking about that are going to run in parallel. And if you don't understand financial rails, this is how money flows from one place to another, one country to another. It's like the pipes that money flows through, and that's why money is called liquidity, because it needs to flow around in order for the economy to happen, the economy to be healthy, but it flows along rails. And we'll talk about that more. Talked about that in the ISO 20022 talk, but we'll talk about that more in a couple of weeks. So effectively, there's going to be cash rails, which is, we already know, like, cash flows in, you're able to transact into the economy, and then it goes out to a bank, and the bank keeps track of how much cash is there. Card rails, which is Visa, MasterCard, all these debit cards that are coming out, basically card version systems. There'll be one rail that things flow through. ACH, account to account rail, that's actually the way that money has been flowing around internationally for their automated clearinghouses. There even in that process, now we're starting to see problems where, if you've been trying to do international money transfers, you're probably noticing that it's taking longer, first of all. And secondly, the international banks have started to kind of shut down accounts, not even shut down accounts, but they start to ask you, like, hey, are you a resident here? Like, why are you transferring this money? And if you're transferring too much, they'll want to know why it's going on, and sometimes even block you. I've experienced this, many people have experienced this. That's because this old system is starting to kind of come to an end, and they're almost running out of liquidity to be able to do all of these transfers in an efficient way. Sometimes it takes days for the liquidity to show up for them to actually do it, or sometimes they're just blocking you. There's banks that have started canceling the amount of credit that they're giving to their customers. So all of these are signs that the old financial system is coming to an end, and they can't just keep pumping money into it to keep it alive, which means it has to go. And that's been the plan the whole time. It's purposely been brought to this point so that, the only thing that could happen would be some kind of a collapse that would reset all of this stuff and potentially wipe out the wealth of almost everybody. Most likely wipe out the wealth of almost everybody who's keeping it in that traditional system. Okay. So that was Cyber Polygon notes. Okay. But the people at the reason why Cyber Polygon was held was because, all this stuff is the cryptocurrency stuff that they talked about on the front end. But what they're talking about is cyber attacks and cyber threats, right? Every single time the people, the powers that be have talked about any kind of this kind of stuff, it has happened. They talked about pandemics happening years before they happened, and they explained exactly how pandemics were going to happen, and they put it into movies exactly how they were going to happen, and then they happened. They've ran exercises on what would happen, and then they happened. So like this is something important to pay attention to, because now if they're saying, cyber attacks is one of the things that they're kind of prepping for and could wipe out the economic system, the financial system. And what I mean by wipe out is, destabilize and cause it to become disruptive for some period of time until they kind of bring it back. That's something to be concerned about, because they could have cyber attacks on exchanges. They could have cyber attacks on blockchains themselves. They could have cyber attacks on power structures and power grids, and just you're seeing cyber attacks happen all around you, right? So if you're not familiar with this, there's actually a company, I should have wrote down the name of it, but they actually are one of the providers of tech for many corporations, and it was released that they actually had a backdoor built into their system that allowed bad actors to be able to infiltrate many of the systems of the companies that use their systems, which means the groundwork has been laid for some kind of global cyber attack things to come. And World Economic Forum and Klaus Schwab have literally released videos saying there's a digital version of COVID that could come that would be much more detrimental, which means there's a digital version of COVID that will come and will be much more detrimental digitally, right? So cyber attacks are another threat. Okay, I know I'm terrifying you, but I got a few more to go through. The power cuts and grid outages and all that kind of stuff are also a concern, especially in developed countries where they can cause a lot more havoc and they have a lot more control of it, but it's anywhere in the world that could happen. The other real thing that I want to mention is, I know, as far as everything that I know about finances and about crypto, I know that over 90% of cryptos will die within the next 5 years, right? Because there's 10,000 cryptos and they're just growing all the time. And there's gonna be 20,000 and 50,000, 100,000. It's like websites and apps, right? Just logically speaking, that's just how things go. Like over 90% of the websites died in the .com crash because they were not actually adding value to society, and it was all hype, and they never actually came to fruition. Same thing exists within crypto, where many of these projects are either outright scams, or they're promising all these things, but nothing's coming to fruition, like EOS, or like a million of the projects that you can name, or they're just regulatorily illegal. Like printing money out of thin air, if you're doing that and you're some kind of centralized organization, get ready to just die, because just logically speaking, you can't just create a token that's convertible into money and then consider that to be somehow legal. If you're completely decentralized, what I'm seeing is it's most likely going to be that they're going to block you out of the system. So it's going to become illegal to interact with those things, and all of these kind of blockchains and tokens that interact with that system, when you want to bring it back and turn it into liquidity and put it back into the banking account, that's where there'll be problems that this kind of funding came from an illegal source. So in keeping that in perspective, that means most projects do not have regulatory clarity and do not have aren't authorized. And the real truth is, they're not built by the cartels, the banking cartels, the powers that be. It's the ones that they create, the ones that they want implemented, the ones that have them behind it that they're going to keep, and the ones that don't have those partnerships and don't have those sound fundamentals, good luck. So through that, over 90% of cryptos, probably even more than that, in my estimation, will not exist 5 years from now. Okay, so that's all threats. That's gloom and doom. It's a million different things. Solutions time. Again, this is my assumption. Any decisions you make from this are at your own risk. Don't just listen to what I'm saying. Please do some research on it and then feel into what you feel like is the right thing to do. There's no right solution in all of this. But which cryptos do have regulatory clarity? Which cryptos do have the right partners and the right backers, and they're actually providing value to society, and they're super necessary for this new financial system to function? And which ones have been chosen by them already that we know of? Here's the ones that I've found. Bitcoin and Ethereum. You could have guessed that one. Bitcoin and Ethereum are two of the ones that they're old enough that they're kind of grandfathered into the system. They've actually been given regulatory clarity, but even more than that, they are where the largest amount of monetary flow is looking to go. It's either already gone or it's looking to go. When we're talking about institutions and the people who actually create the system, the financial regulatory system, most of their wealth is actually sitting in those. So those are going to be the safest haven assets, according to my estimation, my opinion. Those are going to be the safest assets as far as I can see, right? Then there's things like, all my research has said that, you know, they're building something on the backbone of XRP. It's been vetted by the World Economic Forum and the IMF and all the banking cartels and the central banks and like, you know, some of the biggest giants of monetary flow in the world have vetted XRP. Now we're seeing XDC, Algorand, all of these is kind of part of one big XLM is part of it as one big kind of monetary network. So for me, those have great sound fundamentals, but those are extremely high risk. You know, the lowest risk ones I can for sure see are Bitcoin and Ethereum. The highest risk ones would be the ones that I just mentioned. Somewhere in the middle, there's a few of them that are still showing a lot of potential and they have the right backing of the regulation. That's things like Chainlink, VeChain, and Cardano. You know, all of those have the right backers and the right connections, and they have the right fundamentals behind them, and they're capable of being regulatorily authorized in a very fundamental way. Now there's probably many others, but I'm only one guy, so these are the ones that I've learned about, I've focused on, and I've always kept an eye on. Now which ones you stay in or which ones you get out of is all up to you. You know, how you want to play this game is all up to you. These are the ones that I'm seeing myself as something that is likely to survive, you know, the next 4 to 5 years through all of this turmoil. So right now there's all this, you know, FUD going on about, like, you know, we're gonna regulatorily block you. We're going to build this new system. They're not even talking about this new banking system, but that's also one of the things that they're scaring people with. They're talking about CBDCs are going to come out, and we're going to use that to be able to. Natalia, please go back and watch the recording later, like, and write them down as per. So, and do your own research. You could get absolutely wrecked if you pick the wrong ones, and even if you pick these ones, you might lose all of your money. Remember that, right? Don't just do things because I'm saying it. Make your own decisions according to your own research. So there's all this FUD. There's the CBDC FUD, and there's the you know, everything that we just talked about. And some of it they're talking about, some of it they're not, but it's and some of it is real. Things like, you know, Tether, the bank bail-ins, the financial collapse, the stock market, all of those things are real. The manipulation and the news being released about all of this being the end of crypto and all that stuff, that's the FUD, right? So one of the solutions is understanding these fundamentals, understanding the what's actually going on, because what's actually going on is this is all the most bullish case for me for crypto for long term. This is saying that okay, traditional financial system is collapsing. So that means the way our parents made money and what they were told to do and the way they were told to diversify assets, that's all done. It's dead. You know, they've even said we're moving away from shareholder economy to a stakeholder economy. So they're literally saying owning shares in these entities that just, you know, are growth based and just constantly grow and destroy the world, that is not going to be the way the game's going to be played. You know, things like land, gold, silver, yeah, those are the safest, absolutely safest places to sit and kind of ride out all of this shit, even outside of crypto. So understand that all of this stuff that we're talking about is actually technically good for crypto. Okay, so how's the manipulation and FUD good for crypto? It's because it is telling us that they are doing their best. They're trying their hardest to scare as many people as possible and scare the shit out of them to make sure they get out of crypto because they want it. And again, when we're talking about crypto, we're talking about the main ones, but because they want it, they know the value of it, and they're doing everything in their power globally to make sure they scare the fuck out of you so that you leave and so that they can get it. That's how important it is to them. The stock market and traditional markets collapsing is fantastic. Traditional assets collapsing means that there's all this monetary flow, all this money that's been sitting behind these siloed walls in institutions and all those things, which is going to be released onto crypto. Yeah, crypto might be regulated in its own way, but it's going to be released onto crypto, which means growth. On the longer term, it means massive, massive growth. Like we're in the adoption stage of crypto. You know, there's a great quote about like, you know, first they laugh at you, then they ignore you, then they fight you, and then you win. Okay, that's how new stuff always goes, and all this wild stuff always goes. So they laughed at crypto for, you know, years, half a decade. They laughed at crypto, and then you know, past 6 years, it was ignored basically. Now we're in the fighting stage where they're fighting crypto, and they know like, okay, this is something serious, and they're fighting us because they know we got there first, and we're sitting on our bags, and they want to make sure that they scare the fuck out of us because we're still thinking in dollar terms. And we think taking those dollars out and putting it in my bank account is like somehow safe, but that's the trick. Like, for me personally, taking it out and putting it to the financial system is me going, okay, I'm going to take it from my own control and my own kind of autonomy and give it to a tyrant where it's no longer even held by me, right? That's just that for me. That's just it's illogical to do that. But that whole system collapsing is going to make sure that, you know, the crypto is actually adopted. We're in this stage of adoption of crypto, and the financial collapse, the currencies collapsing, and all that stuff. That again is such a bullish case for crypto, because it's like, okay, so if you can crush the US dollar and you can crush Indonesian rupiah and you can crush the entire banking system the way it is, and you can literally take all of my money from my bank account, potentially. For me, it's really likely, but potentially, then okay, I don't want to be sitting in that system. I'm okay to ride I'm okay to be in the middle of the ocean on the most turbulent waves I've ever been on. At least I'm fucking holding the shit myself. Okay, and you can't just crush it, and you can't print it out of thin air, and you can't just steal it from me, unless, other than like cyber attacks and stuff, which is, you know, they're probably going to try to do. Yeah, things like bank bail-ins. They can't bank bail in you from crypto. You know, that's a big one. CBDCs are great for crypto because they're going to be that regulated centerpiece that's going to allow the flow of the monetary flow from the traditional financial rails into crypto and back. So over the long term, that's fantastic. That's what literally, like, we think we have smart contracts now. Just wait until this entire system's hooked up and made seamless, because at that point you will walk into a place and walk out with whatever you need, and probably won't even be walking to places. Things will just be delivered, and the money will automatically just flow from whichever asset you're sitting in to whatever you need, and it'll be done through the use of CBDCs. So for the new system to work, CBDCs are going to be fantastic, and for crypto, CBDCs are the necessary center point that legitimizes cryptos and attaches them to the traditional financial system. Tether dying, that's fantastic for crypto. Not in the short term. It's going to really crush a lot of different people, and people are going to get scared and panic sell and all that stuff. So a lot of people are going to lose everything in that crash, but Tether needs to die. It's a scam. It's a scam that's being kept at the heart of cryptocurrency. And in order for us to go to that next level, to the adoption, the global adoption of crypto, Tether's got to die, and we got to go through that pain. So positive in the end. Things like cyber attacks, like, the positive side of cyber attacks is that, like, we need to now become independent and capable of storing our own crypto in a way so that we're able to secure ourselves. No longer are we just going to like sit complacent and be like, yeah, it's on Binance, it's on, you know, some third party, because I don't want to remember the passphrase, and I don't want to go through the trouble of like having to put it. No, it's like, now there's attacks coming. Okay, somebody's coming for that shit. You want to keep it somewhere where it's attackable? Good luck. Now you're leaving yourself exposed to that. So we will have to learn security ourselves and become even hyper aware, and, you know, figure out ways for us to be able to insulate ourselves from that. So in the end, good, because it teaches us things and makes us wiser and makes us more secure. The death of most altcoins. You know, like I'm saying, 90% of cryptos, over 90% of cryptos, in my estimation, are going to die within the next 5 years. That's fantastic, because over 90% of the websites on the internet had to die in order for hundreds of millions of websites to come online later on that actually had sound fundamentals and actually created the entire world around us that we're looking at. That you know, that went from the hype cycle of what the dot-com bubble was, and like a few of them survived from there and became tech giants. But then once that kind of cleansing process had been done, then the real growth of internet came, and over the next 20 years, it took over everything and revolutionized everything. Same thing's happening with crypto, where they all of these kind of homemade chains where it's like, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and they just don't come through. Those things need to be flushed out of the system. And that's where, like, even regulation is good. Obviously, yeah, they're going to control everything, and we like freedom. Yes, I hear you 100%. It's not good on that front, but this is the world we live in. The world we live in is things have to be regulated in a way so that they even allow that to flourish. But secondly, that's how you make sure that the system is running smoothly, and there aren't these tethers to be able to destabilize things, and there aren't these 5,000 different scam coins that steal your grandma's life savings because she got tricked into investing and stuff. So regulations are going to be good. And the second thing is, regulations are going to be the things that lay the framework for cryptos to go through and connect to that whole system and become, if there was no regulation around HTTP, internet wouldn't happen. If there was no regulation around ICANN and all the institutions that made sure that the internet was regulated and standardized across the board, it wouldn't get to the point that it is. Yeah, they also wouldn't be able to track us and stuff, but like they're part of the same, they're two sides of the same coin. So regulation, fantastic. In the short term, no, it's gonna hurt, because we're coming from that world of freedom, and we're really like, we're like anarchists who like to have our control to ourselves. But that's just not how that's not how the world works. That's not how the financial system works. And if you're still holding on to those feelings, go through the mental process of understanding, okay, do I want to participate in the system, or do I want to participate fully outside of the system and the liability that comes with that? And I'm of the mindset, I want to be in the system and be able to play fluidly while still maintaining as much of my sovereignty as possible. Yeah. So that's how all of the threats are somewhat positive. So that was just me explaining, like, the solution is look at many of these things as a positive, and also prepare and kind of plan for securing yourself from as many of those threats as possible. So the next meeting will be actually literally going through steps to make sure that we're actually doing some fundamental things that to actually secure ourselves, but just start this process. Another kind of solution, at least in these turbulent times for me, is to pull back into the safest assets. I was well down the risk curve, and I was playing in some micro cap coins, and like I was kind of spread out all over the place. Whereas in these times, I actually pull back and I go back into the safest assets, which you can watch the recording again to actually think about which ones I think are safe. But going into those, the Bitcoins and the Ethereums, number one, they outperform everything else in bear markets. We know that they're going to drop less than all of those small altcoins, right? Because they literally have more people's money sitting in there, and they're seen as much more valuable. So therefore, they're going to get bought up much quicker. So pulling back to that insulates me against the drop as much as possible. Secondly, they have the regulatory clarity. They literally have all the money sitting in there from most people, most of the wealthy in the world, who are actually going to perpetrate all of this. So I want to do what they're doing. So I'm pulling back into the safest cryptos and kind of writing out all this stuff. Again, do I think crypto's dead? No. Do I think the fundamentals have changed? No. Is this as part of the game? Yeah. Welcome to institutional grade FUD and manipulation. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to write it out. I don't care what the dollar number says on my portfolio. What I care about is how much of those assets am I sitting on? How many coins, how many tokens am I sitting on? And when I know the value of one of those tokens, I don't give a shit how many dollars it looks like. That's what it's not thinking about it in dollars, but thinking out in value that those assets add, and how many of those assets you're holding becomes the most important. In the short term, if I needed money in the short term, and I'm thinking, within the next year, maybe year and a half, I need some funds, I wouldn't be keeping them in crypto. I would pull it out, and partially what I'm doing is I'm actually keeping some in cash, so that I'm able to actually, in case some financial collapse does happen quickly, I have some cash available, because you won't be able to pull out cash from ATMs if Indonesia goes insolvent, which Indonesia is teetering right on the edge of it. So make sure you're looking in that direction as well. But I'm not keeping any funds in crypto that I know I'm not willing to ride through all of this turbulence. I have a 2, 3, 5-year plan. So in 2 years, I'm hoping that something happens. If you're sitting here watching these months, you're watching these weeks, and you're like, oh my God, it's been down for 2 months. What the fuck? I want it to come back up again. You're on the roller coaster. Okay, you're on the roller coaster and you're going through that same emotional kind of roller coaster that we talked about that they want you on, and they exactly want you to think like this, because if I don't make money in 3 months or 6 months, that's it, it's done. But when you actually zoom out and look at the trend over longer periods, it's one big beautiful trend going upwards, because it's based on network effects, right? The volatility is there, but as long as you're in the right assets, to me, it's for me, it makes sense the most to stay there, and I'm not putting money in there that I need in the shorter term. Another solution to a lot of this bullshit is cold storage. The beautiful thing about crypto is you can store it yourself physically. No third parties, no exchanges. You can have it in you. You can, if you're crazy enough, you can actually store it in your head. You can just remember a phrase, and that phrase is you storing it in your head. So literally nobody can ever access it. Do I recommend that? No, because we mostly forget a lot of things. But the idea is self-storage, cold storage, spreading out your storage methods in different ways, and holding on to your assets yourself. That'll insulate against, things like power cuts and cyber attacks and exchange hacks and all those kind of things. Again, do as you see fit. I'm just presenting these potential solutions that I'm seeing for myself. The other thing I'm also kind of looking at is that, okay, if there is this turbulence going on in the meantime, I'm diversifying my revenue streams. I'm not just sitting there waiting for crypto to come up because that's my cash cow and that's what I'm waiting for to make money so I can live my life and do all this stuff. I'm diversifying my revenue streams. So, like, for example, now we're starting to help connect investors with government tenders here in Indonesia. That's a really good place to be able to have some of my investments put in, because on the longer term, that it's one of the most reliable places that I can actually get a decent return, tax-free, guaranteed by the government. So that's one of the places. There's digital economies that are coming online, which are crypto adjacent, but they're not literally focused on buying a token and holding it, which are growing, which have a great growth potential. So I'm participating partially in that, and then coming up with different revenue streams that allow you to be able to participate in, it allow you to be able to generate an income without having to just focus on crypto. So crypto is my assets. The revenue is coming from many different revenue streams. And yeah, so that's where, like, the government tenders is a big one for me, because, like, I'm realizing, if the governments are the ones who are printing most of the money and they're giving it to themselves and they're spending it on bullshit stuff around you, then connecting with them and participating with them and being able to take some profit from that is a logical way of aligning yourself with what's actually going on while the businesses are shut down and all the traditional investment vehicles are shut down. I don't know Mew. Please do your own research on that. I can't say one way or the other. The other thing is also, no, my Ether wallet sucks. It's ancient, and it's, according to my calculations, it's ancient, it's complicated, it's one of the most basic wallets that's ever existed. So, like, no. From everything I know, I would never keep any of my stuff there for sure. Keep it in, like, much more secure and safe places, please. The other thing is, keeping your funds in different countries. Yeah, like, there's a potential that when the banking system does go, it could just go all at once, and it's going to be perpetrated by things like BlackRock and Vanguard and all of these, and like JP Morgan and Chase and Citi, where they're the ones who are actually kind of maintaining the financial system, and they're working with the governments and the central one world governments that are coming online. There's a potential that when the banking system goes, it could all go at once. But to at least try to insulate myself in whatever capacity I can, I'm keeping funds in different countries, in different bank accounts, in different assets, and then diversifying the revenue streams on top of that, so that I'm not completely beholden to one place. So keeping funds in different places, keeping cash on hand, so that because Indonesia, cash is king. So keeping enough cash on hand so that you're able to, if there is some turbulence, if there are some banking system outages, and, like, I don't know if you guys have experienced it, but there's been times where, like, trying to pull money out from different ATMs hasn't worked, and the problem seems to be kind of getting worse and worse. And there could come a day where the system would go down, at least for some period of time. So make sure, for me at least, I'm insulating against that by trying to prepay as many things as I can, not too far, like, but enough so that, you know, I have some runway ahead of me, but also keeping enough cash on hand for my kind of daily stuff. Here's another great benefit of crypto dropping: tax loss harvesting. You know, so there's a lot of people, and again, I'm not a tax expert, but the more I look into it, it makes a lot of sense that if you're going to be paying taxes in whichever country, and you know, the capital gains is going to be taxed for you, then when the crypto drops, selling it and then rebuying it will actually count as a loss for you, and then you can use that loss to offset your gains and be able to harvest the tax loss. This is one of the biggest ways that the wealthy actually play the game in a way so that they don't pay any taxes every year, because they harvest as much losses as they're going to make gains, and they offset that every year, and then the next year they harvest more losses. And also look into that. If you don't know what tax loss harvesting is, Google it. You know, it's a way for you to be able to benefit from the fact that it is dropping. That's one of the ways, but then there's, you know, other ways of actually, you know, focusing on taxes. And, you know, if you like more information, get in touch. There's multiple different things that you can do to actually make sure that you're reducing your tax liability in a completely legal, completely great way. Shiba Inu is a scam. VeChain, we've already mentioned. VeChain has great partnerships and has great backing. It is likely that it's going to drop. Again, just my opinion, is likely that it's going to drop a lot, way more than crypto, Bitcoin and Ethereum. I don't suggest things, Natalia, you know that. Like, please make your own assumptions from all this stuff. You take away whatever you want. I'm not recommending things to anybody. This is not, like, I don't want the responsibility of being you coming back to me and saying, like, you know, you told me this, I did that, now I lost all my money. You could be doing any of the stuff that I said, and you could lose all of your money. Please remember that. Please make your own decisions. I'm just here to make sure I give you the information. No recommendations. But my outlook is Shiba Inu is a scam, because, like, what value does a meme coin add to society? How much have you paid for memes ever? Have you ever paid for a meme? Okay, how valuable are memes to society? I mean, they're great in, like, mass hypnosis and, like, controlling the masses, and they actually are worth billions of dollars to the powers that be. But in society themselves, memes are worthless. So that means they have zero value. That means you're buying a coin that services $0 or 0 Bitcoins of value to society. So, you know, what are you expecting as far as why do you think it's valuable in the first place? VeChain is literally fixing the supply chain issue of the world, and it has great partners and great backing. Okay, so how much are supply chains worth, and how much value do supply chains add to society? More than we can quantify. So, okay, VeChain is doing something valuable for society and has the right partnerships. So for me, it looks like that could be something that's going to survive. Am I sitting in it? No. Couple more solutions are things like, you know, being in gold, silver, and land. Like, those things never fail. Those things are, and again, you know, you've probably heard me kind of knock land because the prices are high, but in the end, those are forms of assets that they can't hack, they can't take from you. I mean, they can take it from you. Gold, all three of those they can take from you. So there's the regulatory kind of government side of things. Governments have come and taken those assets before, but at least it insulates you against a lot of these things, and it's not likely that they'll just come take it from you, because that would be basically crushing the entire financial system, and they would be going to a different system. In hardware wallets, where do you store it? You store it in hardware wallets, like hardware wallets, cloud wallets, software wallets. Spread it out between all of those things. Where do I store it? Again, you store it wherever you want, but I'm going to be custodying the stuff myself. You know, I'm going to be storing it in my head. I'm going to be storing it in my own physical custody, so that, you know, yeah. Yeah, so that's kind of all the stuff. Yeah, please, Marvin, ask a question on the mic.
All right. So my question would be whether you have some specific news about regulations in the NFT space, because, like, I see it this way, that NFTs, like, it's quite new. It's like a hype that came up last year, and the degree of usability and of these NFTs, like it adds an enormous amount of usability and value to the to society. And like I can see it that it goes somewhat undercover, like DeFi and crypto did anyways. And like that right now, if you look at stuff like Axie, they have actually exponential growth, not only in the value of the token, but in actual user growth. And the target group of stuff like Axie and crypto gaming, it's like several billion people who will benefit. And if you have exponential growth in such a huge amount of population, it could grow faster than regulators could come after it.
See, that's where I agree with you, and I partially don't. Like it's a two-tiered answer for me. NFTs and the verifiable authenticity of ownership aspect of NFTs is one of the biggest missing pieces in making all of this, the entire world system work. You know, I think real estate will be tokenized. I think assets will be tokenized. I think everything is going to become NFT or NFT adjacent technology that will allow, you know, the world to know exactly who owns what. So that's something that I see them adding a ton of value. It's a technology that's one of the fundamental use cases of crypto in the world. So it will exist. I'm sure that they'll come up with some kind of loophole where, you know, the same way art is used as a tax vehicle, NFT art could be used as tax vehicles, or you know, some semblance of it. I could see that on the horizon. As far as the regulation, they're going to come under the same regulation as everybody else. The point of regulation is like, I don't care what you're doing with crypto. You're going to have to hook into the system and be regulated and authorized to hook into the system. Where I disagree is that, you know, or at least from my perspective, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm not Nostradamus, but from my perspective, I'm seeing that, you know, things like Axie and things like all these games and places where real world value is being generated from people's time, those things are going to come under high level of scrutiny eventually. Yeah, they're gonna be allowed to run free for some period of time, but the speed that regulations are coming at, they're gonna just blanket regulate crypto first, and then they're gonna go in and pick away at different pieces of it. And it's kind of like, you know, why isn't Clash of Clans allowed to just print money? What they actually do is they do stuff in the game where people put the money into the game and then they take the money, right? That is great. It's a business that's taking flow and, you know, convincing kids to put money into some random item, and then they're making the money. What's happening with NFTs and crypto games is they're generating the money inside of the game out of thin air, effectively counterfeiting money, and then that's allowed to flow outside and go into the financial system and be turned into actual, I don't like calling it actual money, but turned into value, turned into fiat, right? That is a mismatch, because what's the difference between them and a central bank? You know, so you have to I don't know why. Gozi, just leave his mic unmuted, please. This is all about freedom. Give him the freedom, Gozian. Let the man speak. I'm just kidding. But what they're doing is they're creating money inside of the system and then printing it effectively. So do I see that as being one of the things that gets adopted into the new world? No. I think it might be like, the way I could see it working is that they would be allowed to do that in the game and keep the value in the game itself. And, you know, people could transact it, and people could go and take money and buy those NFTs and actually put money into the game. But for me to imagine that, you know, somebody could just keep playing a video game in the Philippines and then turn it into a token that they then turn into US dollars, which they, you know, and CBDC currencies, which they've printed. I don't see that being the way that they're going to let things run. And the whole point of, you know, all of this stuff is to take control of all the points of generating prosperity. You know, they're literally taking the businesses, they're taking the assets, they're taking the every way that people actually make money. They're controlling it. They're taking the banks. So for us to think that there's a game that can just make money out of thin air, and they're just gonna be like, oh no, that's too hard to regulate, we're just gonna leave it be. No, I definitely see them blanket regulating things, there'll be some period of time where, we'll be ahead of it and like we'll be able to participate. And like right now, we're still in the wild, wild west. These things are going to take time to come out, but expect them to come out much quicker than we're thinking, right? Because the ISO 20022 system is supposed to go live by November 2022. So I see a lot of these things having to happen before that, or these things will be the bridge that they use to get everybody into that system, right? And then between 2022, end of 2022 and 2025 is when that system is going to be completed. So at least by 2025, expect most of these wealth generation events that we have to disappear, you know? So
Like, yeah, like my point would be that like up to now with Clash of Clans, it wasn't possible to actually create money because you need the blockchain to actually have the technology to give the ownership.
yeah,
And like, I wouldn't say they are creating money, but they are more like offering a platform for people to exchange value. And like, if nobody would want to buy my Axie, it wouldn't be worth anything. But right now, because people see value in it,
yeah,
um, they start to like trade it on higher prices. But it's not like they are printing money; they are offering an item which people see value in it. Like it's what was said in the group. They aren't creating it. It's like an artist, and people see value in it.
for sure. And that's where I totally agree with you. That like, if they're effectively creating a piece of art, let's say, and
Yeah.
they are technically creating them because they're breeding the Axies, and another one pops into existence, and now there's something new that people do value and people go in and buy it. So that's where I agree with you. That's a fair argument. It could survive in that capacity. They are going to regulate it in some way. um the thing is, they're making all these arguments that they just kind of blanket argue against these things. So that's why, yes, I see all of this stuff surviving because it is something valuable. It is, it's creating an economy which is based around people valuing digital assets, which is going to be a huge, it's, this is what's happened with crypto the whole time, that there's things that we perceive as valuable or are valuable, and then we go in and buy it, like the Shiba Inus. Um, but to what capacity that's going to exist, who knows? Who knows? But that's also where like it's it's been a great extra revenue stream, because as long as the investment in there, and then you're actually, you have a team that's playing for you and stuff, they're generating tokens regularly, and then you're actually generating money, even as the market fluctuates, you're still reliably generating assets. And what they're actually doing is they're literally monetizing the most important thing, most valuable thing in the world, which is human time combined with human attention, the two most valuable things, the two most priceless things on the planet. They're taking time and attention and converting it into value, and that's the real value that's sitting behind it. And that we know that's how Google got to where it is. That's how Facebook got to where it is. Where they take human attention and monetize it. So that's where this could be the new way of monetizing those things, and it makes sense that these economies would exist and flourish.
Yeah, exactly. And that is where I can see like exponential growth, not only in token value, but like in real adoption. And also the barrier of entry of getting into some ridiculous, stupid game, it's way lower than like actually looking at the history of money and like DeFi and what's wrong with the financial system. It's
Yep.
just download a simple game and earn money. And like the potential for this to grow, I see as like that rapid that regulators may not be able to catch up with it. Like if
Yeah.
you suddenly have 2 billion people within like the next 2 years playing these games and they actually want NFTs, then regulators may have a hard time getting behind it.
Well, that's the thing. That's where, like, the regulators aren't going to need to necessarily come behind the game itself. What they're going to do is go, okay, well, what are you doing with that money? You want to pay your rent, right? How are you going to pay the rent? You're going to pay it in dollars? You're going to pay it in a currency? Where's that currency coming from? Okay, so you got to put it into our system, right? Okay, you want to put $10,000 that you made this month into the system. Where did that $10,000 come from? Oh, you played a game. Okay, so you played a game and you generated this token. Guess what? we've decided those tokens are monetary surrogates. So we can track, like, first of all, we should be able to track exactly where that value is coming from because everything is regulated and everything's KYC. Okay, so we can see where it's coming from. It's coming from that. Guess what? We've just decided we're going to close that door. You can earn all the tokens you want, but if there's any exchange that converts it into money, we'll be able to see it, first of all, and secondly, regulate them out of existence. And then thirdly, like, we don't want that. We don't want that fake money to flow into our monetary system. Sorry, doors are closed. And they can just, they're going to close off the doors and make it so that you can make as many of these assets as you want. But when you come to the real world to try to spend them, that's where that door is where the problem is going to happen, or problem is really likely to happen. That's why I'm so, that's why I always talk about, like, there's that banking system, there's the full kind of encompassed controlled system. And if you think that you're going to do these things which regulators are behind, or, DeFi this and like hide my money here, that, get your ass in that system. Because if you don't have access to one of those doors, and you can't like justify exactly how this stuff is being done, and you're not agile enough to be able to, like, because if they try to make it illegal, then go ahead, convert all your value into assets that are allowed to interact within the system. Then it's great. Up to that point, wild west, enjoy it. It's a fantastic ride, but don't expect that they'll need to come after one of these cryptos or come after Axes or anything. They'll just be the gatekeepers and say, no, you're not allowed into this door. And that's where all this digital ID and all this stuff, that's why I'm painting this broad picture, because there's so much more going on. Because our point, what we're trying to do, is like, I don't give a shit about any of these coins. I don't care what they do for society. I'm trying to make sure that I'm able to secure my wealth, my hard work, in a place that I can then convert it back into quality of life for me, my loved ones, my family, for people I love. So that whole flow, there's pinch points in the middle where they'll close off the doors, and they'll close off the ability for you to be able to interact with the financial system, right? And that's why you have to get ahead of all these things and say, okay, yeah, I'm going to stay on Axes. I'm not going to sit complacently and think, well, they couldn't come after it. I'm going to actually expect that they're going to come after it, because the way they're going to come after it is probably just come after crypto in general, which 100% is happening. They're coming after all of crypto. And then the speed of them being able to stop you from interacting from the crypto world to the real world is going to happen at the speed that they implement this financial system. And the speed that they can implement that financial system in their own documents is, they're saying, like, an overnight type solution, where they're saying, well, first week, this is my inference, that first they would just collapse the old system and say, well, oh shit, the system's fucked, we got to have a new system. Guess what? We got this new system, and we knock it on, and then guess what? Sorry, that the value that was sitting in the old system, gone. Sorry, anything that's not compliant with us, that's outside. The same way they said, the world's locked down. Sorry, if you're stuck in an airport, you're stuck in an airport. Like, you're sleeping in an airport for 3 weeks. We don't give a shit. World is locked down from tomorrow. Exactly. Just like the vax and unvaxxed two-tier system. It's going to be the haves and have-not two-tier system. It's going to be the bankers and the peasants two-tier system. Like, welcome to the two-tier world, where anybody who's playing inside of the system will barely be allowed to survive. And what I'm saying is, like, for me, the way I see all this stuff happening is, we're going to be kicked out of crypto. I'm expecting to be kicked out of crypto at some point, where they will keep closing doors to a point where it'll just become like it is now, where you have to be an accredited investor to invest in many things, and you have to be at a certain level to even be able to participate in the prosperity generation. That's what's kept the world poor the way it's been. The same doors are coming to crypto. It's just the thing with crypto is, we've looked at it as this, like, harbinger of freedom. Crypto is the easiest thing to control. It's all digital, it's all open. Like, the blockchains are anybody can read them, and AI can go in and see every single transaction. So if they just close off certain little points, then they will have complete control. So my kind of longer goal in this is to participate as long as I can, and when the time comes that they're like, okay, no, like, we're going to close off all the doors on you, I'm going to go back to land, gold, silver, grow my own food, pull out my own water, and live a good, healthy, amazing life, and not participate in any of this bullshit, because there's so much more that's coming that we haven't even discussed, that'll be means and methods of control, which we are going to resist. And then I haven't talked anything about the calamity of depopulation that's coming. If you think this is like this is like conspiracy theories and all this stuff, I respect you. I respect your opinion. I know I'm not saying that you should believe this, but I'm seeing a massive depopulation happening that's already started, and the global population is going to be crushed in the next 5 to 10 years. And so the goal for me is to like take whatever wealth I have, be able to secure it in a place that allows it to grow in some capacity. And when they completely close things off, and they're saying, all right, well, here's the two-tier system. There's the people who are who agree, who are in the slavery, and the people who go out and live on their own and they figure out their own shit and they don't have any support other than the shirt on their back. I want to be one of the guys that's out there by myself, maybe living in some community with crazies like me. And this is from the World Economic Forum's website. Research the "you will own nothing and you'll be happy" article. If most of you guys have already seen this, but read that article. Like it's hard to find on the internet. They had it on their website and then they made it disappear. But that article literally said that 2030, there is a utopic world of, we don't need money, we don't need to own things, we have everything's just given to us for free, we have zero privacy and zero ownership and zero autonomy. Cars just come and pick us up and drop us off for free, and we have places to work and places to live, but we don't own any of them. That was a utopia that they talked about, where you own nothing and you'll be happy. And then that first person character said, and then there are others. There are others that live out there by themselves in their own communities that choose not to follow the system, and they're not part of this utopic world where where you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. And all of this that's happening right now is on the path to that. And I've said this before, if you really want to understand, you want to do some pattern analysis and chart analysis, read a book called The Fourth Turning. Okay, that does a 600-year analysis of human existence and the ebbs and flows, and it's called they look at it as like the seasons of humanity, how every 100 years a new system gets invented, and generations come that play certain archetypal roles in the development, the rebuilding, the maintenance, the crash, and the crisis moment of, I guess the crash and crisis are the same thing, of human society. And we are right in the middle of that. And the new, exactly, 1984, Brave New World. So we are now at the precipice of that new system going live, and by 2030 it's going to go live. So pick your places. For me, for the next 4 to 5 years is going to be the worst years we've ever experienced in human history, bar none. World War I, World War II won't hold a candle to these things that are coming. Okay, if it doesn't, I am hoping to whichever God you want to pray to that it doesn't happen. I'm hoping with all my might that I'm wrong, but every single thing that I've understood about the world has come true like clockwork, down to the forced vaccinations of people with genetically modifying things that cause blood clots and stuff. Okay, so like just the shit that's coming up front, zoom out to that, look at that bigger picture, stop focusing on the little stuff and go like, well, I know maybe I made a little bit of this, oh shit, my portfolio is going down. It's like, are you prepped for the next few years, which are going to be harrowing? I'm sorry, I digress a little bit, but like, have that bigger picture, look at all the stuff, secure yourself as much as you can in crypto. There's massive turbulence coming, but the thing that gives me the most amount of hope is that we're not the ones that are here to lose the most. If it just all goes to shit, like they've said every single time before that, okay, this is the end. If it all goes to shit, the people who are going to lose the most amount of money are the corporations and the institutions and the MasterCards and the Visas. And they don't lose. They run the entire world and they create the future. So I'm gonna go ride the boats that they're on and hang out through the turbulence. Sorry, I digressed a little bit. Any other questions? So next time we'll be looking at some real actionable things, like for example, cold storage and understanding how to be able to secure yourself, how to diversify revenue streams, and just have a deeper discussion about, in this case, NFTs and stuff. I really like that topic. In closing, I just want to say, it's the worst times. Yes, you can get a real Ledger wallet. As far as I understand, Tokopedia has them. I still have to actually get it and test it from Indonesia. And again, I don't trust things fully in Indonesia. But as far as I understand, they are available on Tokopedia. The other thing is there's more ways to hardware store things than just a ledger, right? You can actually use phones that you're not going to be connecting to anything as a means of storage. You can store it on laptops and hardware devices, but those kind of things, you know, if they're not backed up on the cloud and there's no means for you to get it back, if the device crashes, it'll crash. So, and I also don't believe in just going just to hardware and storing it in hardware and sitting on the hardware, because if that gets compromised, then you're shit out of luck. So, you know, I like to spread myself out over a few different storage methods, a few different means. You know, it depends on how you want to do it. The way the wealthy do it is they actually keep, you know, their hundreds of billions of dollars with mostly custodians, with insured, secured custodians. And, you know, they have the relationships and they have the insurance to back it up. But again, then you're introducing a third-party risk and you are not storing your own keys. And you know what we always say about not your keys and not your crypto. So, you know, it's up to you how you want to store these things. We'll discuss the benefits and the downsides of each next time. Yeah, you can store it on iPods. You can just make sure, you know, wherever you put it, you have a means of being able to recover it in case the device goes down. That's where things like Ledger and the hardware storage devices are great. There's also ones you can get online that have fingerprint based, like passwords on them. You know, that's good and bad. Like in an extreme situation, somebody could force you to put the fingerprint on there. But you know, and the positive is that you wouldn't forget the password. Hopefully, you know, your fingerprints don't get burnt off. But yeah, but what I was going to say was, like, remember that it's the worst times in your life that made you who you are today. Like, that's something really, really deep to remember, that like, if we didn't go through the trials and tribulations that we went through in our lives, we wouldn't be who we are today. And this is now the next precipice of all that. In crypto and the real world and everything that's going on, these are the times that will, you know, make us stronger by getting through them. We're not going to, you know, just give up. So just hang in there, take it as a positive. You know, it's take it as a negative as well, like take it as a positive as well. You have to face all of those things, but just remember, it's the hard times that make you as strong as you are, and it is these hard times that are going to make us the strongest going forward. And the moments of crisis are the most opportune time in the world. Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys. Thank you for all the well wishes. We are going to start growing food at the sanctuary. We're going to be working with villages to grow organic food and start to build relationships. So if you're interested in any of that kind of stuff, get in touch. We're trying to build a team of support and you know, a network of people who are interested in that kind of food security, but also like helping the local people, making sure that we're bringing as much you know, as much wealth and help into Indonesia and helping local people and working with them to make them independent through educating the children, helping them grow food, helping them be able to sell that, helping them become self-sufficient, helping develop their villages. So, you know, please, yeah, if you're not in the Telegram group, get in touch with us. We'll add you in. Otherwise, just definitely please get in touch with me directly if you're interested in all that stuff. You know, we have a huge number of people who are all going to be working on this, and I want to bring people together and you know, be that center point. Many of these things have already been in the works. We've already come up with ways to educate unlimited amounts of children for free forever, and show them how to not be slaves in this new system. Now we're just, you know, focusing on getting boots on the ground and actually going out and doing all this stuff. And when the times get really bad, those are the kind of relationships and those are kind of, you know, the family that you need to have around you to really tough it out. And there's no better family to have on your side than the Balinese, because they ride through volcanoes, tsunamis, dengue, and earthquakes every Tuesday. So and you know, when times get bad, they start praying more. So please get in touch with us. We're going to create some real change and stay on this thing. But I appreciate you all. Thank you all. Love you. I'll see you guys next time. And Matur Suksama for being here.